Ok. Bon après-midi. Le reste de mon discours va être en anglais.
The rest of my speech is going to be in English. I'm Belgium, but of Flemish origin. I'm no longer used to speaking in French because I've been living for 21 years now in the US, and I work at the MIT.
Media Laboratory.
The MIT Media Laboratory.
I'll tell you a little bit today about the work that I do there with my students, my research group, in inventing new interfaces. So a wealth of information is available today about everything. I mean, all the information, all the knowledge today is really digitized, has all been digitized and is available in terms of bits or digital information. And in theory, we have access to all of this information from our smartphones or our laptops, our iPads, etc. But in practice, we actually don't. It's very hard to find and access and use that information. For example, when you're in the supermarket or in some other shopping context, you may be wondering whether the product that you are looking at has certain things that you should be worried about. Maybe you're allergic to peanuts and you're wondering whether there's peanuts traces in it. Or maybe you are wondering whether that particular product gets good reviews or whether it was made in France or whatever it is that you care about. And in practice, it's just way too hard to get out your smartphone, go to a website, type in the name of that product, and then find out the information that you are looking for. So in practice, we never really do this. It's just too cumbersome. Similarly, a doctor, a very different scenario, when you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you that you have a particular fairly rare disease maybe, that doctor actually may have graduated 25 years ago. Maybe that doctor hasn't really kept up with the latest information, the latest research in medicine. And so that doctor at that moment isn't going to be made aware of all these new, this new research that came out and all these new findings that are relevant to your particular problem and your particular disease. Again, because it's too hard, too cumbersome at that moment to look up all the information that would be relevant at that moment. This is an even, and maybe we can dim the lights a little bit so it's easier to see the screen. Is that possible, AV people? Can we dim those lights a little bit so it's easier to see the projection? Merci. Similarly, if you're meeting somebody at a conference, for example, here today, you can't say, excuse me for a moment while I get out my phone and see how we are connected via LinkedIn or find out when we met last or whether you sent me email and what questions you asked me that I haven't replied to, etc. But of course, that is what is on your mind at that moment. That's the information that you need at that moment. Where did I see that person? What did we talk about last time? What's the name of his wife and his kids, whatever. So that is actually the question or the problem that we work on in my research group. How can we make it a lot easier for people to access relevant information relevant to whatever it is that they are doing at a particular moment? Our physical lives and our digital lives at the moment are very disconnected. There's really only a very narrow bandwidth between the digital and the physical lives, and I'm trying to make the digital lives and digital information more integrated in our daily physical lives. So you already heard about Sixth Sense, which is one of the projects that we have at our laboratory, which has gotten a lot of attention. And this is one of our efforts, basically, to integrate information more seamlessly and intuitively into the environment around us. So the way it works is that a person wears a projector and a camera around their neck, and you either have to have colored tape at the moment, or even the marker caps on your fingers, but the camera can then recognize where your fingers are, and you can then use your fingers to interact with the information that is projected. So you can go up to any wall or surface, project information like a map and zoom in and out. You can just use regular gestures to change between different applications, select applications. For example, the weather, but we also recognize gestures like taking a picture. So the camera is constantly looking at these 4 fingers and interpreting what it is that you may want done at a particular moment. So afterwards, after you've taken all your pictures, if you want to sort through them and organize them, just find a surface somewhere nearby, and you can use gestures to manipulate and sort and organize the pictures. You can also just use your hand to make a phone call, because you have that projector right there, so you can just project the keypad as opposed to getting your phone out to make the phone call. More important, when you go shopping, you can get information about all the products around you projected on top of those products. So this is a bad example because bookstores are going out of business. But if you go to a bookstore, if you pick up any book, really, the system recognizes the cover of the book and can project the Amazon rating of that book. It can give you information and... Sorry, let me turn the sound up. You can see videos added to the newspaper, so you can get video footage about a particular story while you're reading the newspaper, or see the latest sports scores or weather information and so on. So everything that you pick up can become augmented with relevant information, and also with personally relevant information, which is even more important. The system can tell you that your flight is delayed and your gate has changed. This is a very controversial one, but if the system recognizes the image of the person whose hand you're shaking, then you can actually project information, like maybe it could tell you that you haven't replied to their last 5 emails, or what you should talk to them about. Can just project your watch. You don't have to wear your watch anymore. And really, any piece of paper can become augmented with information. We use a clip-on microphone, actually, to detect when there's a touch event. And then you can basically just use any piece of paper as a computer whenever you need it, to do some drawing, to watch a movie.
My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer.
So he's actually just holding a piece of paper to play a video game, manipulating the piece of paper left and right to control your race car in this case. And the nice thing is that, of course, your projection, your screen can be as big or as small as you want it. You can project a keyboard if you need a keyboard somewhere. If you want to do a traditional Google search, for example, and so on. I won't show the entire video because I want to show you some other work that we've been doing since then. One of the projects that we have been working on is an implementation, really, of this sixth sense technology in a cell phone, in a self-contained cell phone. So instead of wearing the system around your neck, you just point at things with your cell phone. Samsung makes cell phones that have built-in projectors. Unfortunately, the projector and the camera are facing in different directions right now, so we had to build a little mirror on top so that they actually look at the same scene. But you can then use that camera, that phone, and just point at something. It recognizes it and then can give you information like this is a coffee cup, or this is a pot, or it may give you an opportunity to order some of these cups or to do whatever you want to do related to that cup at that moment. One of the projects that we also have started since we did Sixth Sense is a more stationary version of the Sixth Sense project. So we have light bulbs all around us in every room of all of our buildings and homes, etc. So we thought, what if instead of a regular light bulb, you could actually have a compact projector camera computer system that you can just plug into any light socket if you need an interface underneath. So that's exactly what we did. We built this system which is completely compact and self-contained. It is about the size of a light bulb. And so it just gets all of its electricity from a regular socket. You have some degrees of freedom. We have a camera, we have a Pico projector, and there's a microcontroller with Wi-Fi so that you can just take out a light bulb somewhere in your home or put this in a desk lamp or something if you want to have an augmented reality surface underneath. So we have a robotic version of this system as well, but you can also just use the standalone lamp. The robotic version allows the system to reach a larger area, horizontal as well as walls to project information onto. But so once you screw in that light bulb, you can just augment any objects that you put underneath and see information related to things that are under the system. And you can also interact with that information using simple hand gestures. This is actually a video of, and I'll turn the sound down, sorry.
If you pick up a product.
This is a project that we did with Best Buy where we made a store of the future, a Best Buy store of the future, where if you go to buy a camera, information is projected about all the different cameras that are there, and interfaces are projected about the different cameras. So if you pick up a camera, it gives you an interface, or it gives you all this information about that camera. If you pick up two, it gives you information to compare the different cameras. You can also, which you'll see in a minute, do price comparisons, see the ratings, contact an expert to talk about that camera, find out which other products people like to buy that also buy that camera, and so on. So the whole idea for Best Buy really was that they are frustrated because in the store, of course, people can buy products or test the products, hold the cameras, and so on. But online, there's all this rich information available about all the cameras. A lot of expert reviews and ratings, and lots of features are being discussed. And they can't give you that same information in the store because there's not enough space to do this. And the expert or the person in the store clerk, is somebody who's probably not paid a lot of money and who isn't necessarily an expert in every camera that is there. So that's why Best Buy was very interested in using this technology to make the store of the future, where, for example, you can use this system that we built to engage in a remote conference with an expert about the product, or to see features pointed out about the product and access any information that might be of interest to you about that particular camera that you're interested in. We've also done some very simple systems, actually, that give you some of that same functionality. For example, this is a simple ring that we built, and it's not exactly a beautiful piece of jewelry yet, but basically this ring communicates via infrared with shelves in a supermarket, and it communicates your own personal preferences. So, for example, if you are again allergic to something, or you prefer organic foods or non-genetically modified, whatever it is that you care about, you put on this ring, it communicates with the shelves, it also also communicates with your cell phone, and that's how it gets the information about the products. And it just gives you red and green and orange lights that are very personalized, that tell you this is a product that matches your particular criteria, your particular needs, and this one does not match your needs. So it's extremely simple, and ultimately, that is what we strive for, and that's why we call this other project Sixth Sense also, because we want to make all this digital information that might be relevant to a person at a particular moment. We want to make that available in such a way that it's just extremely easy, intuitive, as natural as just smelling something or hearing something or seeing something. In some of our other work, we've actually started integrating digital information more in particular objects that we use around us and use every day. For example, this just by adding little lights, for example, LED lights that can show you, give you some information. This is a mouse which you can tell the system which applications and which websites are considered productive and good ones, a good sort of waste of your time, and which ones are not productive and if things that you want to spend less time doing. And so this mouse just helps you be more self-aware, more aware of your own behavior by showing you with little red and green lights how much time you've been spending on these different types of activities, how much time you've been spending on things that you consider positive, and how much time that you've been spending on things that you consider negative. And of course, it's totally up to you to define those. And maybe if you're my 16-year-old son, then spending a lot of time in Call of Duty is considered a positive thing. So we also, another one is this fork that the same student made, and we have a wireless version of it. And the fork, actually, you can program it to gently vibrate when you start eating too quickly or when you take too many bites. And we have now made it magnetic, so you can just add it to any fork or knife or whatever, and it just measures bites, basically, and can also transmit some of this information, so you can look at it at a personal website and see whether you're doing better today than you did yesterday or something. But maybe this example is a little bit silly, but I think it indicates sort of a future that we will be moving towards, where there will be more and more sensors in everything around us that can give us information about ourselves or about the city or about our environment. And this is very much something that will be happening and will be happening more. This is another object that we built that just shows you how much electricity a particular device is drawing, and by showing how quickly the light spins. So we have a dimmer here on the lamp. Right now a lamp is plugged into this box, but you can plug your computer, your dishwasher, whatever into here, and it just shows you by how fast it spins, how much electricity it's using. Again, an example of sort of information being conveyed right there and then, where maybe you'll be the most interested in it, or basically. This is another project where we actually, this particular student who works with me, or who used to work with me and graduated, wanted to make working with data as easy as playing with blocks. So he literally made little computers that are in the shape of a block, and they talk to each other and can also talk to a host computer. And these, you can just manipulate them with your hands and put them in different configurations and so on to make certain things happen. For example, here's an educational application where you can play with equations by just playing with the blocks. And again, the goal here is for the interface to disappear, basically, for the interface to become invisible and to become something that is not distracting, so that you can just play with the data and with the application rather than having to learn a particular interface, how to use it, etc. This same system we've used in completely different applications. For example, Gantt charts, planning types of charts, which many of your businesses, I'm sure, use, where you decide which tasks will happen in what sequence and so on. And so you can just represent all the tasks on the blocks and then move them around. You can have blocks representing particular people, etc. But the idea is that you have this very easy interface. Multiple people can use it together to basically work out a particular problem that you have. That particular project actually resulted in 2 products just in the last year and a half. Hasbro, the toy company, has built one very simple application based on our system. Hasbro is one of our many industry sponsors who work with us, and so they built a system. I'm not sure whether they sell it here in Europe as well, where you have 5 blocks with different letters, and you have to try to make as many words as possible in 1 minute's time. And it was actually their best-selling product in the last Christmas season, so they got their investment in the Media Lab back multiple times. And then the student who did this work on the siftable cubes has also started a company in San Francisco called Siftio, and they now sell these little blocks as well, with a whole range of applications, educational ones as well as other ones. We've also done some work on making sort of easier interfaces to existing computers. Like this is an invisible mouse, basically. So we used an infrared laser, and you can just use your hand and pretend that there is a mouse and do all the same things, like moving the mouse around, the invisible mouse, clicking right and left, etc. But all of that is picked up basically by a camera that is built or that can be built into the laptop. So it's just making it a little bit lighter and easier for you when you go on your travels. You can have a mouse without having to carry one. And, whoops, sorry. Another project that we just did recently, actually, and it's a very simple idea, is also oriented towards making it easier to use today's computers, making everything a little bit more seamless and intuitive. So my student, Pranav, decided to do a project where you use your finger as your USB drive, your data drive. So, for example, if you take a picture, you can touch the picture, and then it's sort of conceptually copied into your finger, and then you can go to another touch screen and touch that screen, and then it pastes the picture onto that screen. And it's really a very simple idea. Different people, so there's not much complicated technology going on. So again, here you see a telephone number on a web page on your laptop, but you need it in your phone, so you just highlight it, copy it, and then it copies it to your phone, and then you can make the phone call. There it goes. So it's a very simple idea. There's no magic, really. We just remember which screens belong to a particular user, and you can sign out and sign someone else in, so you can copy between different people's devices as well. And we now have a version also where you have where we use the camera to recognize or to try to recognize who the person is that is doing the copying and pasting so that it can see, oh, this is not Pattie, this is somebody else, so we better ask them who it is. So that makes it easier to do copying and pasting between two different users. Here we're watching a movie from one phone on another phone. Really what we're using is the fact that devices increasingly have touch screens, and devices increasingly, or all devices really, are connected to the net, to the cloud. So data can easily move from one device to another just using your hand as the device to copy things. So that's sort of the summary of the projects that I wanted to highlight here today, but I'm happy to answer questions that you guys may have. Thank you. And so I don't know whether, do people use a microphone or? Yeah.
Hello. Can you tell us more about the project with a lamp bulb?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a product we can buy everywhere?
Yeah, I was talking earlier about this, that basically I've been doing research in interfaces. I mentioned it for 21 years at MIT, and even when something is technically feasible, and could become a product, it still seems to take a lot of time before it actually becomes available in the marketplace. There's a lot of other issues that have to be resolved. Of course, making something robust and reliable and cheap enough and so on is a huge problem, but also problems of business models and so on. Many years ago, we actually, in my research group, before browsers existed, before the web existed, we invented recommendation systems, systems that recommend books based on the other books that you have bought, or movies based on other movies that you like. And I was surprised to see that even though that was just software in that case, and it was very simple, we invented that technology in 1993 and started a company in 94. We tried to sell this technology, but all these other companies were just saying, like, well, what is the web? Is e-commerce ever going to take off? We don't believe in it, and so on. So we were way too early, and it was really more than 10 years later that the technology really took off, and now almost every e-commerce website has recommendations of one form or another. So I don't want to speculate about when things will become available, and I'm sure that it will still be 5 to 10 years from now for a lot of these types of projects. Yeah. Other questions? I don't know whether... Or questions from Casablanca, if we're connected.
Thank you. How many years do your students work on those projects? And are they helped? Because they need to work on the software part and the hardware part, and the hardware part seems very, very complicated.
Yes. So all of the work at the Media Lab is very collaborative, actually. So many of these projects, multiple people, there's usually one student who is the lead student, but there's many people who are involved. For example, for the system that we built for Best Buy, they actually showed that at the National Retail Federation conference for 3 days live in New York. And we had 12 people in total who were involved in building that whole system for a short, fairly short period of time. So no, it's not just a one-person project at all, although there's usually one lead designer who is then also the student who writes their thesis about it and so on. Yeah. So there's a question here.
So how much, hi, sorry. How much part of the work involves heavy thinking about usability, and how do you publish some of the results?
Mm-hmm. So maybe you're a researcher in user interface design. There's many different types of research that people do. At the Media Lab, we like to do sort of work where we really invent almost a new category of system, rather than looking at very detailed results and evaluations where we look at usability and things like that. So although there's definitely other laboratories who focus a lot more on those types of things, but we don't do a lot of usability type of work. It's really more trying to think of very new categories of interfaces. And then building prototypes of those and building some early applications and so on. Yeah. Follow-up question? I guess the...
Yes, in a previous conference, we saw that the object can have intelligence. And in your presentation, we saw the opposite. The objects are still passive, and the intelligence is in the user.
Yeah.
Who's going to win?
Well, actually, in some of our projects, Sixth Sense is an example project where the world can stay as it is, and you just augment information with the system, basically. But in other projects that we do, like the fork and the mouse and so on, we change the object itself, and the object is both sensing information, maybe processing it, and then displaying some of the information. If we, of course, the latter approach is less general, or it's then you have to go and change each object, which is expensive, and you have to get new objects. You can't use the existing ones and so on. So in our more recent work, we've really worked more with keeping the objects passive and just augmenting them with projected information. But regarding your point about whether the intelligence will be in the person or the system, even though I come from a background of artificial intelligence, I very much believe that it's people who should make decisions and be informed and so on. I don't want to go to a world where sort of the machines do the thinking for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, that's me again. Are you working on prototypes where instead of projecting information into the real world, you just, I don't know, have a semi-transparent screen and do style device?
We have, I didn't mention any of them here, but we have experimented with some heads-up displays, and but they are still very cumbersome, not very seamless. So we're sort of waiting for companies to come out with much lighter weight and better quality displays. So glasses, really, something like glasses that where you can project information, but then also just see through. But the current technology is not quite there yet. Yeah. Well, there's actually, in some cases, it's better to project. I mean, if we had a heads-up display that was very lightweight and just looked like regular glasses, that has advantages in that the information is private, but that is also a disadvantage in some other cases, especially in social situations. You are wearing glasses, maybe your glasses would tell you something about me, and it's very frustrating that I don't necessarily know what it is that your glasses are telling you about me. So it's sort of a very socially maybe an awkward situation, but it may be an awkward situation for a limited amount of time, and maybe we get used to it or something. But so there's pros and cons. Another advantage of projecting information is that you can interact with it more easily. With some of the heads-up systems, you are sort of trying to interact with information that is floating somewhere in front of your eyes, but it's not so tangible. While with the projected augmented reality, you have your book, and you touch the book and the information projected on the book to access the information. So I find it a little more intuitive. Yeah.
Hello. Just have a question. Do you have some research regarding voice recognition integration with your sixth sense and also eye direction or face?
Yeah, so I haven't done as much with voice recognition. I mentioned that I'm from Belgium, and my accent is still hard to recognize by a lot of the voice recognition software, so it's a personal bias. I haven't done much with it, and most of my students aren't American either, so they have trouble speaking in such a way that the voice recognition software recognizes their words. But we have done work with some eyeglasses, basically, that we modified to try to detect where a person is looking. So we have indeed done some work on that, because ideally, again, the system would sort of figure out where you are focused or what you're focused at, and then offer you, if you wanted, information about whatever you're focused on, based on whatever you are trying to do right now.
Hi. On the other side, you only showed us examples of visual feedback. Do you have studies on audio feedback, or is it just for the demo purpose that visual feedback is?
For the mouse, you mean, or for which ones? Which project are you thinking of?
No, what I mean, do you only show visual feedback because it's more easily demonstrable to an audience, or do you also have examples of audio feedback?
We also do audio feedback, yes, in some of our projects. And actually, you saw it a little bit when you're looking at the video, for example, of Obama speaking with the newspaper. You also hear the audio. In some other systems, we have just used audio because at many times the person is visually very occupied and their hands are occupied, and so then audio might be the best feedback to get. So it depends what the situation is, really. But mostly we've worked with visual feedback, but definitely in some other cases audio feedback is more private and it's sort of less used. That modality is more available. Yeah. Yep.
I think I read somewhere that the Sixth Sense project would become open source or open hardware or something.
Yeah. We haven't... Parts of it are open, but one of the problems is that a lot of the software that we use to implement it is actually not open software. So either we would have to rewrite some codes ourselves that we didn't originally write, or else we cannot make several crucial parts available. So that has been the problem with making it available. I still am trying to push my students towards doing this, but it's actually been a lot more difficult and a lot more cumbersome than we thought it would be. Yeah. But there's papers that describe all the methods that are used and all the software, so in theory people should be able to reconstruct a lot of it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, hello?
Any other? Yep.
Do you collaborate with French or European companies, or are you aware of a French or European initiative?
We actually, one of the companies that we work with is Schneider Electric. So we have reused the same Sixth Sense device for a remote collaboration type of project where an expert, so Schneider Electric makes a lot of electrical equipment, very complicated electrical equipment. And so we have used Sixth Sense to give information to a repair person about a particular piece of machinery, and also to remotely connect with an expert who can tell the person who's trying to repair the machine, can visually indicate, like, here maybe you should look at this, you should untighten this screw, or you should do this or that, and they can actually draw sort of arrows and so on that the person who's right there in front of the machine can see, and they can also hear the person speak to them. So it's almost like you are using somebody else's intelligent body, to do some of the repair work, but the expert is remotely connected. Yeah.
Hi.
Person is. Oh, yeah.
We saw a presentation earlier about a device that reads your mind to control a computer. Do you investigate such areas of mind reading and so on?
Yeah, I missed the presentation about Emotive, but we've looked into it a little bit. But I think right now it's still too difficult. It's not quite for us. It's not far enough advanced to use for some more complicated types of interactions. Yeah. But I wish it was even further along. It would be nice if you can just think something and it happens. But as far as I know, it is more for mouse movements and things like that can be picked up right now. Yeah. Anybody else? Nope. Good. Thank you very. Oh, sorry. Yes, one more question and then we'll stop. In the middle here.
Thank you. Hi. Do you think it would be possible to add some kind of spider sense or something to tell me when to warn me when my girlfriend is pissed off or something like that, to detect things and warn me about things?
Well, it's interesting that you ask. I think you had two speakers here at the conference from the Media Laboratory, the place where I come from, and another faculty member there, another professor, Rosalind Picard. She specifically works on this problem that you mentioned of how can computers or technology detect emotions in people. And she's actually especially interested, not in your romantic application, but in the in application for autistic people, so that autistic people can be told, for example, like the person you're talking to is bored right now, or is frustrated, or whatever, so that they are more aware, actually, of another person's emotions and can respond in a more appropriate way in social situations. So she uses it both in that situation as well as for caregivers of autistic people to recognize the when an autistic person is about to get really mad or explode and so on. So she's using this in a range of different applications for autism. Maybe a good speaker for next year's conference. Her name is Rosalind Picard. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's it.